Nah, I'm not really feeling it. Shazam! Much better. Alright, what do we have today? Looks like today, on In Not the Brightest Armchair, we'll be talking about the DC hero movie Shazam. Should I have done the intro into the mic? Probably. Oh, we're off to a great start with this. So, today on NTB's Armchair, or Not the Brightest Armchair, I want to talk about the DC movie Shazam. This 2019 movie was really just a whole lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed this movie a whole lot. I think it brought something to the DC universe that was definitely needed. It's a universe that has been kind of lacking, especially when its rival is the Marvel MCU. So I think Shazam was a really necessary movie for the DC universe. I think that it brought something really fresh, something really entertaining, and to be honest, I just really liked it. You know? All right, review's over. Everybody click off. See ya. But, yeah, this movie was really a whole lot of fun. I think there are a lot of positive qualities. I don't think there's really a whole lot of negatives. I don't think it's like a cinematic masterpiece. I'm not going to come out here and say that, the movie's phenomenal, that, it's like revolutionary. I was checking the audio, by the way, on my computer. I don't think it's like a genre defining movie that's really going to like change the way we look at hero movies from here on out. I don't think it's that kind of movie, but I do think it's really special and it has a whole lot to offer in terms of what it does with characters and what it does just with just general fun storytelling and whatnot. So let's get into it. For starters, we got to talk about the plot. I'm looking at my notes here because I'm a professional. I'm very good at what I do, I promise. Get out of here, page one. So when looking at the plot follows a 14-year-old named Billy Batson. He has been stranded from his mother for a lot of his life. He lost his mother when he was very young, hasn't seen her since, has been always trying to get back to her. He's what I think a lot of people call a troubled youth. In reality, he's a kid that is just trying to find, his mom and thus try to find some sort of family. In his search for his mom, though, he does end up running into a very ancient wizard that grants him these phenomenal powers of, strength, speed, flight, lightning, whole lot of really good stuff. And with these powers, he's tasked with trying to fight off the 7 deadly sins, lust, greed, so on. Here, editor, who's also me, list the 7 deadly sins for our viewers. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to hate myself when I have to edit this. So he's given these powers because an evil man named Dr. Savannah is trying to essentially unleash the 7 deadly sins upon the world to enact this sort of revenge for him not being the one granted with the powers a long time ago when he was a child. And he wants to enact revenge. He wants to basically just unleash chaos upon the world. And it's trying to just create destruction. Billy does end up moving in with a foster family. I like holding it with this better. Billy ends up moving with a foster family that takes him in. He was bouncing around from foster home to foster home, never really quite able to make anything work because he would keep running away. He'd keep getting in trouble. So he eventually ends up moving in with a foster family that has a lot of kids already there, like a lot of foster children already there. They are, pretty accepting of him. They try to, integrate him into the family, try to make him one of their own. Family is a big, big theme of this movie. It is one of the overarching principles that this movie's talking about, but we'll get more into that later. Looking at how this movie performed among critics, it did get a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is actually pretty good in my opinion. Rotten Tomatoes can be kind of stingy sometimes. It sometimes can be a little pretentious, if I'm being honest. Granted, me showing up here in a black dress-up shirt with fancy clothing on just for the sake of a YouTube video is also really pretentious. But Rotten Tomatoes can sometimes be really pretentious, and they can sometimes grade some movies very heavily, so I think getting a 90% is actually a really good performance from this movie. Critics' consensus, according to Rotten Tomatoes, was that it's an entertaining blend of humor and heart. And you know what? I would probably agree. I think for the most part, this movie's just pretty straightforward, just fun, good time. It really is just sort of entertaining, humorous, and it also ended up getting a 7 out of 10 on IMDb as well. So overall, the movie was received pretty positively by most critics and most audiences. Speaking of, it got an 82% on audience score, which if you're looking for these reviews or if you're looking for these numbers, Rotten Tomatoes and audience score can be found on RottenTomatoes.com, and the IMDb results can be found on, IMDb. Get out of here, page 2. This movie was released April 5th, 2019, according to Wikipedia, and also referencing more Wikipedia because I didn't want to take the time to bother finding a more reputable source. The movie earned $366 million US with a budget of $100 million US, which, doing the math, that's a pretty decent return. Sure, it's not like, a huge successful movie in regards to like movies like Endgame and whatnot, but that's still pretty successful. Those are good numbers to get if you're trying to make a movie. I mean, you already broke even with $100 million, so the extra $266 million is just flat out profit. So good on them. So we got the critics out of the way. We got the plot and the overall numbers on this movie. So let's dive into my thoughts as to why I thought Shazam was a good movie. Starters, these are some really fun, lovable characters that this movie has to offer. So, are these characters going to wow you with how deep they are? Are they going to astound you with some sort of bigger metaphorical meaning? No, they're not. They're not overly complex characters. They're pretty straightforward, somewhat stereotypical characters that you're going to find in a lot of other movies. However, they're still interesting enough. They're still decently complicated enough to keep the story interesting, and they're fun. They're very fun characters. I think I have it written down in my notes elsewhere, but these kids in this movie, the actual children, the foster home children, Billy Batson, they feel like characters from 80s movies, the adventurous, eccentric kids that you would see in movies like Stand By Me and whatnot. These characters feel like children from these classic 80s movies that we came to know and love. The villain is pretty straightforward. It's a really, really out there. It's not really out there. It's not a super complex villain. Dr. Savannah, it's just a basic, I want revenge from something in my childhood, blah, 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 blah. You get the point. Basically just an evil genius. That's pretty much what Dr. Savannah is. But to be honest, not a bad villain, though. Really, it's not a super complex villain that you're going to be able to sit there and be, wow, what revolutionary character writing. No, you're not going to get that with Dr. Savannah. But he is an interesting foil to Shazam. He's an interesting anti-Shazam because the whole point, spoilers, by the way, I forgot to mention that earlier on, but this review is going to feature spoilers. Dr. Savannah is a really interesting anti-Shazam because they pretty much grow up with a really similar background or a somewhat similar background involving this idea of problems with family and parenthood and whatnot and trying to cope with that. So they are very interesting comparisons to each other. And that does make the movie a little more dynamic and interesting with how it goes about the characters' storylines. So not a super complex villain, but definitely a solid villain for what the movie's going for. I need to actually pick up my notes here because I have to re-reference some of this stuff. back to our regularly scheduled program in just a moment. Okay. The villain in this movie is played by Mark Strong. To be honest, I think Mark Strong is a really good actor, and he does another good job in this movie. We'll dive more into the acting here in just a moment. But yeah, Mark Strong plays the villain, and I think he does a really nice job. Billy Batson is played by Asher Angel. He also does a good job. Shazam, aka the hero version of Billy Batson, is played by Zachary Levi. He does a really good job. We'll dive more into the acting here in just a moment. One of the things that I really liked about this movie is that when essentially, spoilers once again, later on in the movie, Billy remembers that this magical wizard that gave him these powers, there was this council of magic wizards. Most of them were defeated. The wizard that gave Billy his powers was the only one of those left. So essentially, Billy's like, oh, hey, yeah, there was a council, wasn't there? So he ends up giving his siblings the powers from the other wizard council member people. And they all eventually end up becoming superheroes. And they like turn these like adult-bodied heroes. And it's really funny. And it's really interesting because the actors did a really good job when it came to portraying like childish personalities in these adult superhero forms. You know, like they still felt like the kids, but just with superpowers. And it was really funny. And it was one of the most unexpected parts of the film, but it was definitely one of my favorites just because it was like so out there and the acting was actually like really well done. So props to them. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Moving forward, I really want to get into the acting of this movie. The acting in this film was really good. I don't think there's really any other way around that. You know, I think that the acting, is it like, I don't know if there's like an Emmy or like Oscar award winning performance in this movie. I don't think there's like any like worthy candidate of that. However, the performances all around, like I didn't really feel like there was anything like super lacking in the acting department when it comes to Shazam. As I mentioned earlier, Mark Strong had a phenomenal performance as Dr. Sivana. I would argue that he's one of the best acting performances of the film. I think he does a very nice job. He wears that villain face very well. He has a really like good evil demeanor throughout this movie. He overall just does a really nice job in this film. I can throw these notes away. And moving on to the child actors. The child actors did a really nice job with this movie as well. A lot of the time when it comes to child actors being really prominent in movies, I get kind of skeptical. Not because every child actor is going to be bad, but just because the lack of, you know, acting experience, the lack of acting coaching, you know, it could sometimes lead to children's actors not being quite as impressive. But overall, the acting was really fun in this movie. It was really entertaining. I felt like the actors really embodied the personalities they were assigned to do, and I thought they actually did a really good job. I think of the children that were in this movie, the exceptional performances from the child actors in this film. Probably Jack Dylan Grazer as Freddy. Freddy is Billy Batson's like friend or brother, like that is closest to Billy. He's supposed to be like really funny, very sarcastic, and I think that Mr. Grazer did a phenomenal job and very entertaining character. Very entertaining, very witty. Definitely is going to make you laugh. Whole lot of fun there. And then another performance that I thought was worth mentioning would be Faith Herman as Darla. Darla is this really young girl, and she's kind of meant to be like, Freddy's meant to be like the witty comedic relief. Darla's meant to be sort of like the goofy comedic relief. And Faith does a phenomenal job playing Darla. She's funny. Like she makes the characters better around her, I think, because I think she gives more of an interesting dynamic. And I don't know. I thought Faith did a really good job as Darla. I thought Darla was a very funny character. And yeah, overall acting from the children, nice job. They had a really good performance. And hoping that they all end up getting more jobs in the future, because I think Shazam proved that these kids are worthy of more acting jobs as their careers go on. So, as I mentioned earlier, the acting of the adults acting like they were children, really funny. Really, really funny. Especially with Darla, because, I mean, Darla's the youngest character in the movie. So, like, having a grown person play Darla is probably difficult, because you're having to embody, like, the personality, I think, of, like, a 6-year-old. Could be wrong, but I think, like, a 6-year-old. And I don't know. I think it was really, really well done. I think, what's her name? Megan Good. I think Megan Good did a really nice job of just trying to, like, act like a kid with superpowers. It was really funny. She's the hero version of Darla. Did a nice job. Shazam, aka Zachary Levi, is another one of the adults trying to act like a kid that I think was just incredible. I think Zachary Levi does a really good job of sort of like embodying this young 80s adventurous kid personality in a superhero form. I think he did a really good job. I've seen Zachary Levi in a couple other projects, including The Marvelous Miss Maisel. Loved his character in that. I thought he did a phenomenal job in that show. And I think he did a really good job in Shazam. He was definitely one of the more standout performances as well. And I thought he was really funny. I thought that he was really entertaining. And yeah, I think Zachary Levi was just an absolute laugh factory. He made me laugh on countless occasions. It was very, very fun. Talking about the plot, this plot's not super complex. It's not really going to make you think. It's kind of predictable too. I think a lot of superhero movies are kind of predictable where they're going to go plot-wise. And Shazam's really no different. But it doesn't mean it's bad, though. Just because a plot's fairly straightforward doesn't mean it's bad. As long as the plot is executed well, screw it. If it works, it works. In this movie, it did work. In this movie, they still made me laugh. They still made me enjoy the story. They still made me care about what was going to happen to the characters, even though we all kind of knew that everything was going to be fine in the end, So overall, I mean, the plot, it serves its job. Like, it's a good vehicle for a fun, entertaining story, and it's a good vehicle for just fun, entertaining characters. Get out of here, notes. The morals and themes of the story aren't going to be super complicated either. You're not going to walk away from this movie feeling like a changed person. You're not going to walk away from this movie feeling like, wow, I'm thinking on a higher plane of existence now. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But it does carry some themes about, like, the importance of family, and like family is what you make of it. We find out in Billy's side plot where he's trying to find his mom that family isn't really about blood, like blood relation. It's more about bond. It's really about who's close to you. It's really about who cares about you, and so on and so forth. So it's a really straightforward plot, but I mean, it's good. It does its job. It does what it sets out to do. No complaints. Looking at the production elements of this movie, I mean, based on what we've seen from movies in the past 10 years or so, I don't think this movie's going to stand out for what it offers in the visuals and sound design and whatnot. I don't think like the production elements in this movie are going to stand out. However, they do a nice job. Like, they effectively do a good job. The CGI is, pretty solid. I personally liked a lot of the visual composition. I love city aesthetics, especially when you add a bit of contrast to it and like make it pop with some color. So I think it looked nice. Sound design in this movie is pretty good. They did a solid job of curating some, music and whatnot. And overall, like the actual like sound design involving like Foley sound and whatnot, pretty good. I don't think this movie really struggles in any of the production elements. It's not going to wow you in any production elements, but it's overall just a good, well-made movie. No complaints there. So let's dive in to my final score. Shazam gets an 8 out of 10 from me. And that might sound worse than it actually is. 8 out of 10 is pretty good. Like, that means it's a good overall movie. It's definitely very fun and worth watching. I think that if you're a fan of superhero movies and if you're a fan of like those classic 80s movies involving the kids just being super rambunctious, like Stand By Me, I keep referencing that movie. There's others, but I'm just kind of stupid. Stand By Me character vibe in this movie. So like if you enjoy that kind of, if you enjoy hero movies or if you enjoy movies kind of like that, I think you'll enjoy this movie. I don't think it'll be your favorite, but I think that you will be satisfied overall. It's a fun summer movie, which essentially means that like it's not going to force you to really think too hard. It's not really going to be super complicated, but it's a good time. It's fun. You could sit down, watch it for 2 hours and be like, yeah, I had a good time. That was fun. Like I watched the movie with some of my friends and, I didn't walk away feeling like a changed man, but I walked away like, man, that was a good movie, Let's see. Notes. The movie doesn't try too hard. I think it knew what it was going into it. Like I think Shazam knew that if it took itself too seriously and it tried to be genre defining, it wasn't going to work. So I think it kind of stays in its lane, and I think it succeeds in all of its objectives. It's a fun movie with a variety of comedy, with a variety of interesting characters. I think a whole lot of people can enjoy this movie. I don't think there's a lot of people that could really hate this movie. And I think that the audience scores and Rotten Tomatoes scores and IMDb score kind of prove that. Like overall, this is a movie that just does a good job. And I think it's a movie that a lot of people would like. Why do I not give it a 10 out of 10? Sort of going back to the idea of like, I don't think it's like really anything too special. I think it does a good job of succeeding within what it's trying to do. But I don't think it's like groundbreaking. I don't think it's a movie that's really going to, make hero movies better. I don't think it's a movie that's really going to shake up Hollywood and like, it's not a movie that's really going to stick with me too much, but it does complete all of the objectives that it sets out to do. And that's why it gets an 8 out of 10 for me. It knew what it was trying to do. It knew it was trying to be fun. And it really, at the bare minimum, it accomplishes all the objectives it sets out to do. It's fun. It's exciting at parts. It offers fun, like interesting characters that are witty and funny. It offers a serviceable plot that gets the job done. And I accidentally dropped more of my notes. Good times. So overall, yeah, Shazam gets an 8 out of 10 from me. I definitely recommend watching it if you're a fan of hero movies. And I think that if you're going to watch Shazam, as long as you go into it not expecting it to be the best movie ever, you'll really like it. It's a good movie. 8 out of 10 from me. This was the first, not the brightest armchair. I'm going to try to make more of these because I actually really enjoy this recording style. If you do find the video good, feel free to like, share, subscribe. I'm going to try to upload more on this channel. I don't really upload on Not the Brightest Opinions that much just because these videos tend to require more effort and I'm more focused on the gaming side of things lately. But I am really looking forward to trying to upload more stuff. I've got a lot of films and movies and TV shows that I want to talk about. Film and TV is going to be reserved for the Armchair. I want to get into music at some point as well, like reviewing music. That'll be a different thing, but it'll still be on this channel. But yeah, this is going to do it for today. This is Not the Brightest Armchair. Thanks for watching. And of course, have a wonderful day.